everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here. We got another CyberInsight live stream. Gonna do another continuation in our series on how to build secure networks. Yesterday we dove a little bit into the continuing need for having some type of perimeter security. Today we're gonna step a little bit further inside the organization and talk about logging and centralized logging. As you can see, let me move over here. We're talking about centralized logging, the importance of it, some of the tools that we're going to use for it, different ways that we are going to go about configuring it, and yeah, all that good jazz. So let's move over to our handy checklist that we've been using here and take a look at the specific controls that we're talking about, and then we'll go a bit more in depth into what this really means for a normal business organization. So the first control that we're looking at is talking about the need to have some type of centralized syslog server. Right. So in doing that, we want to ensure, first off, that we are logging on our devices, right? And that kind of gets into a little bit of a philosophical debate that then ends up turning into a resource debate about how much logging is too much. But really the important thing, or the first thing you want to do, is make sure that you do have logging turned on. And if you aren't familiar with how logs work, depending upon the type of device that you have, in most cases we're talking about syslog. Although once we get into certain types of applications, they're going to have their own unique logs, or Windows is going to have, Active Directory type of logs and other types of Windows events within that. So you kind of have to drill down and have a good understanding of all the different types of tools, devices, and applications in your environment. Once you have that, you want to turn on your logging for that. That makes sense. And this particular control is talking about not only making sure that you're doing that, but then it's not manageable if you just have it turned on all these devices and you aren't bringing them together or funneling them to a central location where you can do a whole bunch of different types of monitoring and alerting. And it just makes searching for things a lot easier than having to go to device. That's not really a manageable solution once you have more than a handful of devices. So that is kind of the first control here, is making sure that you have a centralized log repository. And then the other control down here that kind of goes along with it that I would bundle with this is making sure that you have enough logging storage history, right? So if you're just doing it locally on a device, eventually that's going to overwrite, and it's probably going to overwrite pretty quickly. The more granular type of logging that you have enabled, the more space that's going to take up on the device, and eventually it will overwrite. So you might turn on very verbose logging on your device, and because you do that, the amount of storage space is going to be eaten up more quickly for your logs on there, and you're going to lose that valuable data. So that's kind of the reason why we're talking about having a central repository where you're able to export those logs to, and then it doesn't matter with the fact that the device is going to overwrite the logs that are locally on the device, because you've offloaded those to a central repository, which is going to have a much larger amount of storage to be able to house those for a longer period of time. In regards to this specific control here, they're talking about being able to maintain logs for a minimum of 30 days online, and then you can back those off someplace else for up to a year. Really, depending upon the organization and business that you're supporting, there's different types of regulations and laws that you might need to comply with, which might make this differ quite a bit. You might be in an environment where you're actually required to maintain 3 years of logs or 5 years of logs. And then you kind of get into this back and forth with, okay, what type of information out of the log is necessary, which type of logs are necessary to keep. It's a rabbit hole that you can definitely go down and get lost, and a bit outside of the scope of just trying to hit on the importance of needing to have logs in your environment. So once you have these logs going back to a central repository. Well, what type of tools might you use when you're collecting these types of logs, for what purposes? So you kind of have some stuff that might be a little bit more operationally focused. So something like SolarWinds or a Nagios, which is able to ingest logs from different sources. And you're more interested in seeing kind of operational messages coming in and being able to react when, I don't know, resources might be overly utilized, or you might have interfaces going down, or other types of things that might impact the operations of your environment. Another type of tool that you might have heard of or might implement that you might send logs to is something like a SIM tool or a security incident and event management tool. And normally this is going to be a tool set that is security focused, where it's going to be collecting and aggregating logs from different devices in your environment. And it's going to be prioritizing and alerting on different types of security events that it's able to correlate based off of the logs that you are sending to it, right? So you might see different types of thresholds might get met if you have, a whole bunch of failed login attempts. Or maybe you have an IDS that's sending its logs back to your SIM, and based off of the log events that are coming in from that, it might trigger some other types of higher level security events. That's something that does take a little bit of tuning, and it's very rarely you're going to find something where you're just going to be able to plug it in and it's going to work right away. But the important thing is making sure that you understand all of the devices in your environment, what's there, and you make sure that you have logging and able to offload those to, your security tools. Another type of tool, which is kind of like the next step from a SIM, is what they refer to as I believe it's a SOAR, a SOAR. So it's a security, orchestration, and automation response tool. So you can kind of think of a SIM as ingesting all these logs, doing some type of correlation, and then sending off alerts based off of different types of security events. A SOAR is kind of taking that to the next level, where you're really able to ingest different types of security data feeds for different types of signatures and things like that. You're able to automate different types of responses based off of different types of events happening, where a SIM might just send off just an alert, and the SOAR might be able to actually have some type of scripting or something like that that is able to trigger some type of triage process or some type of remediation process. We kind of see that there is some blending between these two different types of tool sets. So you might have something that is a SIM that has some of these SOAR capabilities in it. But it's definitely something that you want to be aware of, and one of the main reasons why you want to make sure that you're able to get your logging to a central place and be able to send it off to different types of tool sets. So I think that is pretty much all I wanted to hit on today for logging and centralized logging and the importance of that. If anybody has any questions, they can drop those in the comments now, or drop them in the comments on the video. Tomorrow, we're not going to be doing another one of these videos. It's going to be our regular Wednesday live stream video, where we're going to be walking through a troubleshooting methodology, which is super useful both from an IT perspective and from a cybersecurity perspective, especially for new folks who are getting in who aren't quite sure what's the best path to go when trying to resolve different types of issues. So that's going to be on the live stream tomorrow, and then Thursday and Friday we'll get back to digging into these best practices for building out secure networks. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video and it's helpful, hit that like button. If this is your first time checking out the channel, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch, I appreciate it if you hit the subscription button. That is a good way of letting me know that you are enjoying the content. So, all right, hope everybody has a good evening, and we will chat soon. All right, bye.